Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive. And get this, you're actually listening to AI voices today, summarizing a really fascinating article
Wow.
from rockingultry.com.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a blog, like for runners of all levels, right? Like whether you're just starting out or you're like a seasoned ultramarathoner, they've got, articles on everything.
Oh, nice.
So today we're diving into the world of David Goggins.
Oh, intense.
Right. This guy,
Yeah.
he's a former Navy SEAL. He's an ultra-endurance athlete.
Yeah, incredible.
And he's written this book called Can't Hurt Me. And
Yeah.
it's really interesting because he had like a really rough childhood.
Yeah, I know. It's hard to believe considering what he accomplished.
I know, like growing up in poverty, facing tons of abuse.
Really tough start.
And then he goes on to,
Mhm.
complete SEAL training, run ultramarathons.
Multiple times, actually. Yeah, like didn't just do SEAL training once.
Oh my God.
Pushed himself to the absolute limit.
And then there's like the Badwater 135, one of the toughest ultra marathons out there.
Yeah.
And then on top of all that, he set a world record for pull-ups.
No.
Yeah. Over 4,000 pull-ups in 17 hours.
That's insane.
It's crazy, right? I mean, that's not just physical strength. It's like superhuman mental toughness.
I know. It's like he unlocked some secret level of willpower that most of us don't even know exists.
I know. It makes you wonder, what are we all capable of if we could,
Right.
tap into that kind of potential?
So, what's the takeaway here? Is he saying we can all be, superhuman?
Well, not necessarily superhuman, but I think his story shows that we put a lot of limitations on ourselves. Our
Yeah.
potential is way bigger than we often believe.
Mm.
And a lot of those limitations are self-imposed.
So it's about, breaking through those mental barriers.
Exactly. Goggins is basically saying that if we can break through those barriers,
Yeah.
we can achieve things we never thought possible.
That's pretty powerful.
It is.
Yeah.
So how does his book, Can't Hurt Me, kind of play into all of this?
Okay, so it's more than just a biography, right? It's
Right.
like a manifesto for mental toughness.
Okay.
He's brutally honest about his experiences, but he also gives, practical challenges to help readers push themselves out of their comfort zones.
Mm-hmm. Like what kind of challenges?
Well, there's this thing he calls the accountability mirror.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
You have.
Yeah. Is that like where you stare in a mirror for hours?
No.
Okay.
It's about confronting your, truths and your failures head on.
Okay.
He started by writing his shortcomings on sticky notes and putting them on his mirror.
Wow.
So he had to see them every day.
That's intense.
It is, but the point is, it's not about punishment. It's about self-awareness.
Okay.
By facing your weaknesses,
Mm-hmm.
that's how you can start to overcome them. And that's a big part of his whole philosophy.
That takes a lot of guts.
It does.
So what else makes Goggins' approach so unique?
Well, one thing that stands out is this concept of callousing the mind.
Callousing the mind. I've never heard of that.
Have you?
No.
It's pretty intense, too.
What is it?
It's about, intentionally exposing yourself to discomfort to build resilience.
Okay.
It's like, when you're training for a marathon and you push your body through pain to get stronger?
Yeah.
He's saying we should do the same thing with our minds.
So the more we push ourselves, the tougher we get.
Exactly. He applies it to all areas of life, not just physical challenges.
Right. That makes sense.
Hmm.
But how much discomfort is actually necessary for growth?
That's a great question.
Where's the line between a healthy challenge and pushing yourself too far?
Yeah. I mean, I'm all for pushing boundaries, but there has to be a balance, right?
Right.
That's definitely something we need to explore because Goggins, he thrives on pushing himself to the absolute limit.
Mm-hmm.
But everyone's different, What works for him might not work for everyone else. So finding that balance is key.
Right, because we don't want to end up burnt out or injured.
Exactly. Whether it's physically or mentally.
So we've talked about Goggins' achievements in this callousing the mind thing, but what are, the core principles of his philosophy?
Okay, so there are a few key themes that run through his work.
Oh.
One of the big ones is radical ownership.
Radical ownership.
Have you heard of that?
I haven't.
So it's about taking responsibility for, everything. Your actions, your reactions, no matter what.
So it's like taking control of your life, not blaming outside circumstances.
Yeah, exactly. It's recognizing that you have the power to choose how you respond
Mm-hmm.
to any situation.
I like that.
And that ties into another key principle, resilience.
Okay.
Goggins' whole life is about never giving up. From running ultramarathons with stress fractures to, doing SEAL training multiple times.
Yeah.
He just keeps going.
Wow.
He really embodies what's possible when you just refuse to quit.
It's pretty inspiring.
It is, even if it seems a little
A
superhuman.
little bit, yeah.
But, one of the things that I really appreciate about Goggins is that he's so authentic.
I know. He's like so real, so raw.
He doesn't sugarcoat anything.
Yeah.
He's just like straight up about his struggles, and
Yeah.
that's really refreshing,
Yeah.
In a world where everything feels so polished and perfect,
Mm-hmm.
it's just like a reminder that it's okay to struggle.
Yeah.
It's okay to fail. It's okay to be vulnerable.
It's all part of the process.
It is. It makes us human.
Right. But even though there's a lot to admire, I've also heard some criticism
Oh, of course.
about Goggins's approach. Like,
Yeah.
some people say he glorifies suffering
Mm-hmm.
and that this kind of all or nothing attitude
Mm-hmm.
isn't really realistic for most people.
Yeah, that's true. There are definitely some valid criticisms that we need to address.
Okay.
Goggins' methods are intense,
Mm-hmm.
and they might not be healthy for everyone,
Right.
So we'll definitely delve into those criticisms
Yeah.
and examine both sides of the coin. But before we do that, I just wanted to remind everyone to check out rockingultra.com for, more awesome running content.
Yeah, for sure. They've got tons of great articles, whether you're just starting out
Hmm.
or you're an experienced runner.
Exactly.
So definitely check them out.
It's a great resource. So yeah, before we mention some criticisms of Goggins' approach, like one of the biggest concerns is that he seems to like almost glorify suffering.
Yeah.
Like you only achieve growth through pushing yourself to the limit, constantly being in that pain cave he talks about.
Mm-hmm. It does seem a little extreme.
Right.
Like, is there even room for self-care in that approach?
That's a really good point, because while resilience is super important, it shouldn't come at the cost of mental well-being.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, it's got to be a balance, right? You push yourself, but you also recognize when you need to rest and recharge.
Exactly.
And sometimes asking for help, that's actually a sign of strength, not weakness, which is something that Goggins doesn't always acknowledge, I feel like.
Right, because, like, constantly pushing to the extreme could lead to burnout
Well, absolutely.
or even injury.
Yeah.
And that whole what doesn't kill you makes you stronger
Right.
thing.
Right.
Sometimes things do kill you, or at least really mess you up.
Exactly. It's not always the best motto.
And that kind of ties into the all or nothing aspect of his philosophy.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Which, like, for Goggins, it's always about pushing to the absolute limit.
Yeah.
But that's just not realistic for most people. Like,
Okay.
we have jobs, we have families,
Responsibilities.
We can't all just, like, drop everything and go do SEAL training.
Exactly. It's not sustainable for most of us.
I mean, I get the whole callousing the mind thing,
Yeah.
but do I really need to be doing ice baths and running until I puke every day?
Probably not.
It just doesn't seem very, like, livable.
Yeah, that's where, adapting his principles comes in, like taking the core values, the discipline, the resilience, but applying them in a way that works for you. Because you don't have to take it to that extreme level where it becomes detrimental.
So it's like he gives you the blueprint,
Mm-hmm.
but you can kind of customize it.
Exactly. You're the architect of your own journey.
I like that.
So yeah, there are definitely some valid criticisms, but
Mhm.
even with those, you can't deny the impact Goggins has had.
Yeah, I mean, his story is so inspiring.
It really is. It resonates with people from all walks of life. And he's helped so many people overcome challenges and achieve things they never thought possible.
Yeah, even if his methods are a bit much,
Right.
there's something about that message of self-belief and resilience that's just so powerful.
Absolutely. He's a reminder that we're capable of so much more than we often give ourselves credit for.
And what I really like is that he's so authentic.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he's not afraid to show his flaws, be vulnerable.
Exactly.
That's refreshing because it's like, in a world where everyone's trying to be perfect, he's just, like, being himself.
And he's using those imperfections to fuel his growth.
Exactly. He's not some, like, unattainable superhero.
He's human, just like us.
Yeah.
And I think that makes his accomplishments even more impressive.
Because it shows that you don't have to be perfect to achieve great things.
Exactly.
And I love his emphasis on that radical ownership.
It's so empowering.
It's like, start blaming everything else.
Yeah.
And take control of your own life.
It's like you're not a victim of your circumstances. You're the architect of your own destiny.
I love that. It's about recognizing that you have the power to make choices and take action.
Exactly.
So yeah, Goggins' philosophy might not be for everyone,
Right.
but there's no denying the positive impact he's had.
For sure.
And he's a reminder that we're all capable of so much more than we think.
Absolutely. It's all about embracing those challenges, pushing those boundaries,
Right.
and never giving up on yourself.
And, if you're looking for more inspiration on your running journey, definitely check out rockingultra.com.
Yeah, they have articles for runners of all levels.
From beginners to, ultra
All
marathoners.
kinds of stuff, training tips, race reviews, motivation.
It's a fantastic resource.
Mhm.
So, yeah, definitely check them
It's
out.
a great place to start.
All right. So that brings us to the final part of our deep dive into David Goggins.
Looking forward to wrapping it all up.
Yeah, we've explored a lot.
Definitely a wild ride.
All right. So we're back for the final part of our deep dive into David Goggins.
Mm-hmm.
It's been pretty intense exploring his journey.
Yeah, it's like a crash course in mental toughness.
Right. Like resilience on a whole other level.
Definitely makes you think about your own limits.
I know. So as we wrap up here,
Yeah.
what are some things listeners can actually, take away and apply to their own lives?
Okay, well, I think one of the biggest takeaways is we all have more potential than we realize. Goggins just shows what's possible when you
Yeah.
break through those limitations.
So it's about setting those ambitious goals.
Yeah, and not letting fear hold you back.
Right.
Push yourself beyond your comfort zone. Discover what you're truly capable of.
And that takes discipline,
Oh, for sure.
resilience.
Huge.
And
Yeah.
those are things that,
Yeah.
we've talked about how Goggins embodies them, but it's not just for athletes.
Right. It applies to everything.
Right. Like if you're working on a project or trying to build better habits,
You got to show up consistently. You got to bounce back from setbacks.
So it's not about being perfect. It's about being persistent.
Exactly. And remember, mental toughness.
Yeah.
It's a skill you can actually develop.
Okay.
We talked about callousing the mind, right?
Mhm.
You don't have to go to Goggins extremes,
Right.
but find small ways to challenge yourself mentally, emotionally.
Give me an example for someone who's not signing up for SEAL training.
Okay. What's something you've been putting off because it makes you uncomfortable?
Oh.
Public speaking, maybe?
Yeah.
Or a tough conversation you need to have?
Mhm.
Or even starting a new workout routine
Okay.
instead of avoiding it. Lean into that discomfort.
Yeah.
Start small, push yourself a little bit each time,
I like that.
and you'll be surprised how much stronger you become.
So small steps build up from there.
Exactly, yeah. And don't forget about radical ownership.
Right.
Taking responsibility for your choices, your actions.
Even when things go wrong.
Even when things are tough, because it's easy to blame stuff,
Yeah.
but focusing on what you can control.
Mhm.
Super
Yeah.
empowering.
So even if we don't love everything about Goggins,
Mm-hmm.
there are definitely good things we can take away.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's about finding what works for you.
Adapt it to your own life.
Exactly. And if you want more inspiration on your running journey,
Yes. Check out rockingultra.com.
they've got tons of articles,
Training, nutrition, motivation, all things running.
no matter what level you're at.
It's a great resource.
Awesome. Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive
It really has.
into David Goggins. What a ride.
Definitely a wild one.
Remember, you don't have to go to his extremes to learn from him.
Take what resonates with you, adapt it.
Most importantly, keep pushing those limits.
Yes. And never give up on yourself.
Thanks for joining us.
Of course.
Until next time, happy running.